smells like football, baby.
What's up, people? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Kyle August. You can follow me on Twitter at KyleMonth8. And the only Dallas that I am on speaking terms with on this fine Wednesday night, January 19th, we got Dallas from the Rookie Rundown. What's up, bro?
Yeah, dude. The slide heard round the world, man. That was
why are you gonna do that?
That was rough for your boys.
It was it was just the cherry on top. Like, I don't need to go into it any more than everybody already has this far. But what is this? 3 days past this, past that game now, and I've just come to the conclusion, like, man, he just at the end of it had plenty of opportunities. San Fran really tried to let him back in it, and they just screwed the pooch over and over. So as a Cowboys fan, I should have just expected at this point. But
dude, hey man, it could be worse. You could be a Bears fan like me, and like every offseason, you never hear good reports typically coming out about our coaching search. Yep. And 3 days in, there's already people that are like, yeah, I think I'm going to pass on the GM job. We're good. Thanks, though. So, it's a great time.
Yeah, I saw somebody, or the Giants Twitter, like, it's always funny, like, sometimes out of touch these guys that run these social media accounts for these pro teams, but, like, they posted on Twitter, like, the guy, like, peeking around the wall or whatever, and it said, like, 100 days to the draft or whatever, and then somebody like commented with the same like kind of guy poking around, is like, you have no GM or head coach. Like, so it's about to get busy, I'm sure, as far as the hiring goes. No major hires yet as of today, and so you got to expect we're going to start seeing an avalanche with all these openings all of a sudden, right? And as of right now, Dallas isn't one of those, but anyway, so how did super duper wild card weekend treat you personally there? Did you place any bets? Did you have any DFS going or anything?
No DFS, no bets either. I went a little bit, I would say, irresponsible last offseason with my bets. And so I am no longer doing bets in the postseason because that's even more insane for me. Okay. We do a fantasy, I don't even want to call it a fantasy. We basically do a pick'em with my family every week. Ended up winning that for the regular season, and I kicked everyone's asses last week. I picked a perfect slate of games, picked all the correct games last week, so that's positive for me. Yeah. Pat myself on the back on that one.
You chose San Fran, but
yeah, I had to do it. My dad's actually from San Francisco, so if I had picked anyone else, I probably wouldn't have been able to come over to the house this weekend. So
yeah.
But yeah, other than that, not too bad. What about you? You have any monetary gains this weekend?
Dude, it was probably like, I'm not a huge, like, I've only got into betting because of the big bet on this here network, right? And so I really enjoy player props and stuff. Like, it's fun to follow along, and but yeah, I barely broke even, and it took some pretty like live betting maneuvers to get there. Like, the Chiefs, I think at one point got down to plus 3.5 because when Pittsburgh scored the first touchdown. So I hit that, trying to catch back up, and I live bet like Brandon Bolden receiving yards to try to like get back into it because they were behind so early. I'm like, okay, yeah. It was like at 15. I'm like, okay, like, yeah,
we'll go with it.
Yeah, those things. It was only those, like, all the ones I felt confident like going in, where I'm like, oh god, like this is horrible. So yeah, obviously the Cowboys taking an L, and then not mixed results, I guess, on the prop bets. I took a break from the fantasy stuff as far as like doing playoff leagues. I usually run one, but this year especially, I don't know, I just had to dial it back. I was like, no pressure. If I bet at all, it'll be on my time. I'm not forced to, like the playoff league stuff. You got to make sure you get your leagues in. So I was done following injury trackers.
Feel you on that one.
So, well, we got another great slate of games coming up this weekend. So looking forward to that. But on today's show, we're going to bring in Dallas. Obviously, he's doing the Rookie Rundown show here on this network. He's been doing it for about a year now. So you always love hearing the rookie talk from Dallas, and he's been churning out some content here. But on the Smackdown today, we're going to actually take a look back at the last two rookie classes. So 2020 and 2021. So the rookies from last year and the sophomores from last year. And we're going to, in essence, break out our top 40, combining these two classes. So everybody is on the board. QBs, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. We're going to draft this as a super flex with tight end premium, just to kind of give you guys what you guys are probably playing at this point if you're listening to these podcasts in the middle of January. So pretty straightforward. Other than that, we're just going to roll through these guys. We're going to go back and forth picking players, and we're going to get to our top 40 rookie sophomores. So this should be good. Get deep enough for you guys. And Dallas, I'm going to let you kick it off. Who you take in if you have that first pick?
Ooh, so this one is actually pretty easy for me. Before the season, he would not have been ranked as the number one player in the last two classes for a super flex last two kind of quarterback classes, but I'm going Joe Burrow at the 101 in the equivalent. The main reason I'm choosing him over Herbert, who I think would be first for a lot of people, is the situation is very much up in the air going forward. The Los Angeles Chargers are still the Los Angeles Chargers of old right now, where new head coach, new GM, new look, it doesn't matter. They still are going to charge her, basically. Very much up in the air with the receiving options. Keenan Allen's another year older. There's still no tight end of note on the roster. The running back now is going to be 28, I think, 27, 28, something like that with Eckler. I think it's 28. And then Mike Williams most likely won't be on the team next year. So it's very interesting to see how this offense in general is going to go for the Chargers. While on the flip side, my guy Burrow has T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, who absolutely broke the NFL this year, Joe Mixon. The offensive line can't get worse because it didn't get better last offseason. So, again, you would think since they blew, I don't want to say blew, but since they did not use a pick in the first 5 picks last year on a tackle, you would assume they're going to use one of the late 20 picks now on a tackle coming in. There's going to be a lot more cap space to be flown around. There's going to be quite a few free agent tackles this year as well. So I like Burrow's outlook. I think he is the highest ceiling right now because of the weapons, even though his rushing ability has tapered back since his rookie season, just due to that injury hesitancy that he's experienced that some of the other quarterbacks haven't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it was clearly like the 1-2 or these quarterbacks. At the beginning of the year, I had Herbert probably around 5 or 6, just kind of overall. Like he was, a stud. He didn't necessarily move down a whole lot, but Burrow did move up where it's pretty tight between those two. Personally, I like Herbert a little bit more just out on a talent level than Burrow, but like you said, the weaponry needs to be considered here. So I still have Herbert just a smidge over Burrow. He's easy to take here at number 2. But the only concerns for me with Herbert are those weapons, right? Like, how long are we going to have Keenan Allen? He had a good year this year, but Mike Williams, pending free agent, no tight end to speak of, versus when you flip the script with Burrow, just like you mentioned. So I honestly think the first 2 picks are pretty easy if we're talking super flex. And I'm not going to fault you for whatever route you go. I can totally understand the taking the guy with the better weapons for sure. So we're going Burrow, Herbert, 1-2. Felt like that was pretty chalk. So let's dive into number 3. Who would you take as your third rookie sophomore?
For me, it's gonna be the wide receiver train. Typically I would go running back, but knowing that this is a back and forth exercise with me right now, I'm very comfortable with both of my top basically 3 running backs. I still think that there is a clear drop off, even though Chase surpassed his former teammate and my guy Justin Jefferson. I still like Justin Jefferson more than Jamar Chase as an overall NFL prospect. As a guy who's in the NFL, he's blowing records away. Basically, he's just behind OBJ's historic start to the season. Adam Thielen's another year older. They're going to continue to add to this offense. I love me some Justin Jefferson. So that would be my first wide receiver and skill position off the board in this format.
Yeah, and I think, and I didn't do this intentionally, but I did make my life a little bit easier because I felt like the first 4 were kind of like that. It was whatever quarterback you like, and then whatever wide receiver you prefer. Because I'll just go ahead and take Jamar Chase. I think him and Jefferson are very, very close. I love the fact that Chase is paired with Joe Burrow. What we saw from both of these guys the last 2 years has been absolutely insane. When 2 years with Jefferson, this last year with Jamar Chase, you can't go wrong with either of these guys. Honestly, I think if you're talking about the non-QBs, in my opinion, I think it's those 2 wide receivers, at the top, and you can, again, similar to the QBs, you can go either route. I think they're both extremely talented. They're very young, right? They're coming into the league young, and you cannot go wrong with these guys. For me, sometimes when I've been thinking about these wide receivers this offseason, it's not the concern over, man, can he eclipse 1,400 yards again, right? Can Jamar Chase bust all these long plays? It's more of like, is his value going to get any higher? Like, should I continue to own him on these teams where I'm kind of in the middle, right? Can I cash out, But I think as far as talent level, they're awesome. So we got Burrow, Herbert, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase at 4. So I'll kick it back to you for number 5.
Yeah, and for me on this one, I'm jumping for joy if I'm getting Jonathan Taylor at the 5th overall pick in this situation. I understand it's a super flex, but the dude's a tank. I was dabbling between Jonathan Taylor and the first tight end off the board, which I have a feeling you are most likely going to be taking with this next pick. But I'm going with JT. He's a workhorse. Any hesitation you had about him at all is gone. If you can find a bad thing to say about Jonathan Taylor or his outlook or his offensive line or his team in general, even with Carson Wentz, even with corpses replacing Carson Wentz, the dude still performed. Just historic touchdown successiveness of every week scoring a touchdown this last year. And it's just something that's going to continue. He gets the volume in the passing game, the rushing game, all the goal line carries. Nyheim Hines is now irrelevant. We were all concerned about it this year because of what he did last year. JT's my guy.
Yeah, I think the one thing I had him at number 5 as well overall in this exercise, and for me, it's because next week, just a little preview. Next week, I'll be taking a look at my initial 2022 redraft rankings and doing a comparison of some of the biggest risers and fallers compared to how I ended 2021. And when I look at the running back position for 2022 only, for me, it's JT, it's Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler. Like, that's a tier. I like all of them, as those first 3 picks. But when you look at Dynasty, I think it's JT, huge. Like, for me, it's a gap, and then the rest of the running backs. I think JT for sure is going to be your Dynasty RB1 for the next at least 2 seasons, which for running backs is still a long time. Like, I don't think there's anything that's not a negative against him. I think you could be looking at more, but I think you lock it in 2 seasons of the best running back. Even if he doesn't finish RB1, this guy will finish RB top 5 the next 2 years, bearing injury. So I think JT is a great pick there, and definitely was the guy that I had number 5 as well. We're going to start mixing it up, I'm sure, here shortly, but we won't at pick 6 because I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts. This was a guy that rose up my board a lot despite his 1 touchdown. I think when you looked at it, you saw a little bit of not bad. Like, the dude was a stud, but just a little crack in the Travis Kelce armor, right? I think we're going to have this whole offseason to overthink everything. I think Kelce's 31. When you look at Kittle and Waller, those guys a little bit older as well. Andrews with a great season. He's a little younger than those other guys, so he's definitely in that contention. But I think when you also look at some of the guys that took a step or that didn't take that step forward, like for me, TJ Hawkinson, I'm like, man, I hope he's as good as we want him to be. But that kind of solidifies Kyle Pitts for me as he's just kind of like JT's kind of locked and loaded RB1. I think Kyle Pitts for Dynasty is that for me, he's the tight end 1 if you're going straight up startup because of the age. But he's got to be in that top 3, regardless of if you want to take this shot on Kelce or Andrews. So for me in this format, with it being tight end premium, I'll take Kyle Pitts at number 6 and just know that rookie campaign was really awesome. And if the dude scores 5 touchdowns, I think people are freaking the hell out, which should really make a difference. The volume was there. The talent was obvious. And I think he'll be looking at a QB upgrade in 2 years at the least anyway. But I like Kyle Pitts at number 6. So any thoughts on it kind of sound like you had Pitts there. Any thoughts on Pitts at 6 and then who you taking at 7?
Yeah, Pitts makes sense for me at 6. That quarterback situation is really sketchy to me, though. Matt Ryan looked the worst this year that he's looked in my recollection, basically, since I've been playing fantasy football. Even though he has the classic roller coaster season, good season, bad season, good season, bad season, it was historically bad. Since his rookie year, he has not had a statistical season like what he just put up. It was just boneheaded mistakes, boneheaded decisions. They have no weapons right now. If Calvin Ridley doesn't come back, they're basically forced into taking a skill position player or spending out the ass next season for a skill position player. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. But Pitts is the right move, in my opinion, with tight end premium in this one. This is the exact moment where the format starts messing with my head a little bit, with it being tight end premium and quarterback. super flex. I'm not going to go quarterback position, though. I am going to double down and hit back up the running back position, and I'm going to go with Deandre Swift. This may be a little bit unpopular due to the workload, due to the situation with the team, but Detroit was feisty, and because of the injury that happened this year to Swift and the way he came back and didn't really look amazing due to the fact that he was still injured and never should have came back, that we talked about like on 3 podcasts in a row. Still mad at Dan Campbell. He looked amazing midseason. He was balling like nobody's business in the midseason, and that's something that I see continuing. He finally is getting the workload. Campbell stopped being cute with handing Williams the ball all the time and just was giving basically everything to Swift. He started getting the goal line looks. He was bonkers for like 4 weeks in a row with his reception and target totals. And as long as Jared Goff is the quarterback, which I think is probably still going to be the case next year based off of how well he played, he had a very underwhelming statistically, but he kept the team basically in games they had no business being in. I like Swift's outlook long-term and the team outlook, honestly. So Swift is my second running back out of the entire last 2 classes, and so I'm going with him.
I like the call. He was my RB2 as well. And I think a lot of the time too, like if you're talking about just kind of like dynasty overall, some of these positions too, like from the guys that we're talking about today, is going to translate to the top guys in just startups in general too. But I like Swift a ton. I loved his involvement in the passing game, was awesome. I mean, you need to see that if you're going to be a top end running back. There's a few guys I really like, but I'm questioning their involvement a little that we're going to get to here later. I love Swift. I had him just a little bit lower, but I like the call there because he was my RB2 from these last 2 classes as well. I'm going to make you make the tough decision at QB because I'm gonna steer away from there at least one more time as well. And this has been, I went back and forth on this guy because I'm trying to avoid homerism, but I'm still gonna take CeeDee Lamb. This Sunday was disaster. I mean, I don't know what the hell that was. And if that recency bias opens up the door as a buy low for CD, I'm going to go after it this offseason. I still think he's extremely talented. He's going to be obviously paired with Dak Prescott throughout his rookie contract, which is at least 3 more seasons in Dallas. Who lines up on the other side of him or on the outsides if they put him in the slot a little bit more? That still remains to be seen. You have some free agents there in Dallas with Gallup and Cedric Wilson, a contract that has an out with Amari Cooper, and Dalton Schultz is also a pending free agent too. So you could be looking at, a revamped offense as far as those weapons go. But I still think, before the season, I had Lamb right there with Jefferson, like it was 1A, 1B. I think Jefferson showed you that he is the alpha, and Lamb to me could be that, but just didn't show up this year enough. I believe he was wide receiver like 18 in PPR. That's not good enough for him to be like a blue chip, but he's still really high up there. So I'm going to take him at 8, mainly too because of some of the quarterback questions, and I think Lamb will be pretty safe. So as far as that front, the upside might not be what I thought it could have been, but I'll take Lamb at 8, and I'll kick it back to you for pick 9.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to do this to me. Just so everyone knows, I actually have 2 wide receivers over the last 2 years that I have ranked higher than Lamb.
Okay. There was at least one I felt like I debated, but I was wondering, I wanted your thoughts on that. So I'm glad we're going to get there.
I probably know who it is. It's probably the guy that I have ranked highest. But for me, I have to go quarterback in this situation. And this one's probably going to rock some boats, but I'm going Trey Lance as the third quarterback off the board right now. Trevor Lawrence did negative things to make me feel good about him, and it's not just the offense. He was forcing balls. He was extremely inaccurate for the first time in his career, something we didn't see in college. He never had like pinpoint accuracy, but he was always in the ballpark, and there was so many throws this year just outside of the wheelhouse that you weren't used to seeing in Trevor Lawrence, which concerns me. It wasn't just Urban Meyer. The dude didn't look good at all. The whole offense didn't look good. And with that offense in flux, you're telling me that Laquan Treadwell was the most successful wide receiver on your team this year, even though you had some names on it? That concerns me. Yeah. Trey Lance, say what you will. He had a couple of turnovers. He doesn't look super pretty. The rushing floor is there. It's absolutely beautiful. And when he's actually in there, as the starter, he's produced for your fantasy teams if you played him.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where the floor means something. He's looked good. His arm is a freaking cannon, just like pretty much anyone that you want to say has the strongest arm and out of any of these classes, really. He's up there. And I'm very excited to see when he has the full offseason, inevitably as the starter, is what Shanahan said going forward. So I'm excited to see what he can do next year. I think he has the safest floor out of all the remaining quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised you went that route because I thought I was gonna have to make the call. Even I don't think it's necessarily tough, but and apparently it's not for you either because you took Lance as the first QB as far as from this year's rookie class, third overall in this process here. So I agree with you. Like I had Lance over Fields, not because I think I love one over the other, but like one's in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan and a front office that is not going anywhere, and the other one's in Chicago where everyone that picked him just got fired. So
except for the person that's making all the bad decisions to begin with. That's fine. I digress.
That's true. So I'm not gonna go Fields here anyway, but that was what my thought process was: Lance or Fields.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna go Trevor Lawrence at 10. The tough part with him is, compared to Lance and Fields, is like those guys should have rushing floor. So even if they suck as a passer and they turn into Jalen Hurts, you're still looking at a very solid fantasy quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, I had this discussion, and I might have mentioned on this podcast. I can't remember where I say stuff these days, but like I remember going into the season, like the rookie hype period. I'm like, all right, are we getting Andrew Luck? Minus the retirement thing. Are we getting Andrew Luck? And then like halfway through the season, I'm like, all right, I'll take Kirk Cousins like plus. Like I'm okay with that. Like you can still get it there. And by the end of the season, I'm like, is this Derek Carr? Like, is that my?
Is this Daniel Jones?
I didn't want to toss the man into the deep end like that and just drown his ass already. But I'm still holding out some hope. I'm gonna go with Trevor Lawrence here at 10. He would be my third quarterback overall, just a hair above Lance, but that is saying something because there was a huge gap there, in my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, that it was Lance and then nice upside there with Lance and Fields, but to me, they're all clustered in a threesome here in my rankings. So I'm going to go with Lawrence here at number 10. So I'll do a quick rundown through the first 10. Burrow, Herbert, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, JT at 5. And then 6 through 10 is Pitts, Swift, CeeDee Lamb, homer pick, Trey Lance, and Trevor Lawrence at number 10. So I'll kick it back to you for number 11 as we're a fourth of the way through here.
Yeah, this fits perfectly based off of the fact that I was telling everyone to take this guy at the 11 to 14 range last year. It's my boy Justin Fields with a super flex situation. Like you said, the floor is there. They're all in a 3-pack, basically. These 3 guys, you don't really know how any of them are going to turn out. 2 are in terrible situations. 1's in a great situation. That's why I picked the guy in a great situation first. It is a coin flip for me for Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. The thing is, there is no way that the Chicago Bears situation can get worse than what it was last year for Fields, having to split with Andy Dalton. At least the Gardner Minshew split never happened, like Urban Meyer threatened it to happen basically all offseason. With Fields, like I said, the offensive line actually got quite a bit better throughout the year. Tevin Jenkins might be a bust, low-key. Just going to tell you all that. As a Bears fan, watching him play was atrocious. Jason Peters actually looked good, so I am optimistic. Allen Robinson's absence wasn't really felt all that much because when he was in the game, wasn't that great. For me, Chicago is a prime landing spot for an alpha wide receiver, i.e. a guy like Mike Williams realistically could land in Chicago as that true big body outside to pair with some of the speedsters on the team. Justin Fields just needs weapons. He needs his tight end to catch more balls, even though he was on a historic base for targets and catches. But we'll talk about that later. I'm going Fields in this situation with it being super flex. I think he's the last of a very finite tier that happens at the quarterback position where I'm comfortable just railing off skill positions for the next couple of picks for myself before I go back to the QB well.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you after those 5 QBs with obviously the tier of the Burrow, Herbert, and then this year's rookie class. There's a drop off. So I think that's the right pick there for sure. I still think there's nice upside there. And I mean, if you're a QB needy team, you're looking to kind of reset your quarterbacks. I mean, the line should be patience, but we all know that dynasty owners are not the most patient people. So I don't have any problem going out there and trying to take a stab at the owner that took Fields or Lance and see. I mean, I think you can get him at a lower price than you got that he was going for last year for sure. And you might be able to get a discount that might surprise you. But if you own those guys, my advice would be to hold pat for now.
That was my recommendation last weekend for anyone who has not paid attention to the rookie rundown. That's my perfect segue into my little plug. I went through the buys and sells / buys and cash outs of the rookie class from last year, and Justin Fields was on my buy list just based off of pure value alone that you're going to be able to get. Go and check it out if you want the full analysis, but I'd tell you the picks that you should be taking / trading for him. So yeah.
Awesome. See, there you go. That's a true professional right there. Our buddy Mike he is already spoiling your tease that you did there. He said you can't draft Jimmy Graham. So
the ageless wonder, the guy who somehow was still in the top 6 in tight end touchdowns. Yeah. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to anyone.
Does not make sense. But you mentioned it, there's some skill position players coming up in your rankings, and there is for mine as well. At number 12, this guy is actually at number 12 for me. So we're staying at least on the same path here at the top of the board. I'm going with Najee Harris. He's my third running back. I liked his involvement in the passing game. I think he's extremely talented there. The season was really weird because that team was just a pile. And then I don't love the early reports that Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskin could be in line. I'm like, oh my God, you can't figure something else better than that. But they've had all these years and they haven't done anything about it. So maybe that's just what they're going to stick with. But I still think Najee is going to be a workhorse back. There's definitely some other running backs I like that are coming up here quickly. But I think that when you look at, JT's obviously the man, but when you look at Swift and Najee, I think you're looking at two workhorse running backs that are extremely hard to find. And I don't think they're coming off the field. So I'm going to stick with Najee Harris at number 12 here on this one and kick it back to you for number 13.
Yeah. So I am going to dive back into the wide receiver which is a guy who I think you may have been eyeing. And I think for both of us, even after what Ja'Marr Chase has done, might be still our favorite guy on the Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver core. And that's Mr. T. Higgins himself. Way back in the day, those of you that are, multi-year Patreon and or DWZ Network listeners know that on the first contractor episode that I did, and the second one, I talked quite a bit about T. Higgins. He was my second highest rated wide receiver coming out of the class, just behind CeeDee Lamb. The dude showed you what he can do when he gets the targets on the tail end of this season. Everyone was waiting for the blow-up game. All the haters were saying that it wasn't going to happen now that Ja'Marr Chase was there. And what happened? Chase saw 10 targets, but T. Higgins saw 15 and caught 13 of them for $150 and 2. The guy went absolutely nuclear in the same fashion that Chase did. This offense can sustain two bosses on the outside. And for me, the quarterback situation out of all of the remaining wide receivers still feels the most comfortable by going with a guy like Higgins. There's still a weird stigma out there. So it's a guy that I think you can get at a discount, especially after what Chase did this year, even though he low-key put up pretty much equal numbers to what he did his rookie season with more competition. So I'm going with T. Higgins.
Yeah, I like that call a lot. I love me some T. Higgins. I think that you can feed off of the fact that in acquiring this guy cheaper than he should go for because of the wide receiver 2 stigma, he's not the lead dog there. It's just he and points per game, he was wide receiver 12 this year. So, and he got off to a pretty slow start, was a little bit banged up. He was missed a game or two, was missing some practices. So I don't think he was 100%, which all these guys are dealing with injuries, but I think there's even bigger days ahead for T. Higgins. So I love the upside with that kid. And I think you can get him a little cheaper than I think you can get him cheaper than the guy that I'm taking next, which is another receiver. I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle. Love the volume for this kid. I think he showed that talent wise, given that opportunity as well, this guy's going to be a really solid dynasty wide receiver. I don't think that he has the upside of CeeDee Lamb even. I think he's going to be that, consistently, maybe even, in PPR, maybe a little bit of a boost, obviously, but he can be in that 10 to 15 range, right? I don't think he's Ja'Marr Chase. I don't think he's Justin Jefferson. I don't think he's going to jump into that tier, but I do think Jalen Waddle should be extremely solid. And for this, I'm leaning wide receiver a little bit over running back. So he was kind of that guy before the running back run for me that I still want. I feel like I missed the boat on just because I didn't end up getting him. He was my wide receiver 2 in the rookie class this year, but for whatever reason, I just didn't get him on too many rosters. And I kind of feel like, well, now he's too pricey versus T Higgins is something like, I feel like I get that guy. So I like Jalen Waddle a lot. I'm not paying the price for him right now, but if you're doing just a startup or whatever, that's where I'd have him ranked as far as over the last 2 classes. I have him as my wide receiver 5 and 14 overall. So I'm going with Jalen Waddle.
Very nice. Yeah. The only thing I have concerns with is his depth of target. It felt a lot like one of the age-old Jarvis Landry in Miami seasons to me.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a ton after the catch, which is what he was basically lauded about. And that was one of his biggest things. I want to see an offensive-minded head coach in Miami so that I feel a little bit better about him. But I had T. Higgins and Waddle both above Lamb in my ranks. Those were the 2 wide receivers that I had up there. If Kellen Moore, per se, were to go to Miami as the head coach, which is a possibility, I'd like him quite a bit more than I do right now. But if a defensive-minded head coach goes there, I'm a little bit more concerned that you're going to see that low average ADOT just because he's the only guy that Tua is comfortable with as a safety blanket. So, yeah,
I think with some of these guys too, it's going to be interesting to see like whether it be a change in just OC or a change in head coach is what they're, that year 2 could end up looking different. And Waddle, I think, is definitely a candidate for that. So I think as far as safety goes, I would be concerned as far as his upside because of the targets he was seeing were not downfield to say the least.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the insight on that one. We're at number 15 now. So back to you, Dallas.
So this is between. So we hit a tier of running backs here for me of 4 guys, which I'm just like, it's kind of a crapshoot. And I'm just kind of going based off of how I feel more comfortable about them. And I'm not saying that in a negative connotation because all 4 of these guys are studs when healthy, but there's a lot of health related issues with 3 of them. Thus, I'm going to go ahead and say that the guy I have at the highest is the one that didn't show any health concerns issues, but he did have a split concern issue for me, and that's Javonte Williams with the Denver Broncos. Until the last dying snap of the season, the Broncos refused to give him the lion's share of the workload. We thought he was going to get it at the end of the year. He still continued not to. I talked about it in one of my podcasts a couple weeks ago about how I'm still a little bit concerned that they realistically could bring back Melvin Gordon on the cheap next year based off of how freaking good he looked this year. He didn't look aged at all. He did not look like a 28-year-old running back. And I think realistically, they would be smart to re-sign him just because of how effective they were as a tandem. But if for some reason they don't, they bring in a lesser guy or just roll with Mike Boone as the RB2, his workload and his efficiency with what he did this season could skyrocket and make him even higher than the 2 running backs we took before him in Swift and Najee.
Yeah, I like the call. I think you mentioned it with I know Melvin for me was somebody I'm like, okay, just go away. Like every time he touches the ball, I'm like, damn it, he looks good. And Twitter will burn to the ground if he's kept.
I'm telling you, dude, I've been calling it for weeks. I've been like, don't be shocked if he's back.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Melvin Gordon a lot. So I mean, he's always been one of those guys for me that like just a little bit underappreciated, I guess. Yeah. And he's like a double-digit touchdown guy every year. Even though if you remember back in those Chargers days, I mean, they'd give that damn kid like 4 attempts from the half-yard line. He finally busted on 4th down.
Yeah, he was the CEH with an extra 40 pounds.
Yeah. So it was definitely it's been a fun ride for Melvin. We'll see if we get one more year out of him, but maybe hopefully somewhere else for Javonte's sake. But I still like the kid's talent. So we got Javonte Williams at 15. I'm with you on the running backs. I actually have 5 all kind of clumped together, so we'll see where the difference is. I wasn't necessarily expecting to put this guy at the top, and I don't want to just like be too recency bias with this, but I liked this kid a lot going into the year, and we never got to see it until last week, and that's Cam Akers. I love the offense he's in. I think that he can do it all. And coming off that injury, I was scared to death. I had him in a couple spots. I was afraid to go get him because I was just like, man, who knows? Can he come back from this? And he comes back the same season. And then what we saw, they gave him a couple carries, and then on Monday night, the first round of the playoffs, they just, they used him a ton considering that this kid is just coming back. So I think when you factor in just where he's playing, what the upside is for the running back in that offense. I mean, we saw the course of Sony Michel be extremely fantasy relevant. And I think Cam Akers is obviously much talented than him and can do more things. So, there's definitely little question marks with all of these guys in this range for me. So they're all really close. But right after Javonte comes off the board, I'd go Cam Akers. So what's your thoughts on that? And who are you leaning at 17?
Yeah, I actually have one running back above Cam Akers, but he was not at the bottom of the tier that I was associating that with. And I like him. Like I said, I've seen what I've needed to see coming back from the Achilles, where I'm not concerned about. That's why he's ranked higher than the guy that's bottom of this tier for me. But Elijah Mitchell is the running back I actually have ranked higher than Cam Akers, which I know you can call that recency bias. He was a little banged up, as the other two in this tier were for me. But he's the only running back that we've seen the true lion's share be handed to in the Shanahan offense. When he is healthy, he gets everything. There's no sprinkles of other guys in the passing game. There's no stupid use check runs up the gut. He gets everything. And that's not something we've seen from a Shanahan offense on a regular basis. So as long as he stays healthy, he's shown the speed, he's shown the pass catching chops, he's shown the just pure brutality that he has in between the tackles when it gets to the goal line. So I'm a pretty big Elijah Mitchell fan. I think he's going to be quite a bit cheaper, in the same vein that a guy like James Robinson was, just because they kind of filled the exact same role in the fantasy landscape this year as being a very, very buy low guy going into week one that lasted all season. So I'm pretty high on Elijah Mitchell, and that's why I have him actually just a little bit higher than a guy like Cam Akers.
Gotcha. All right. And he's definitely for me, that's a polarizing player. Like, just because how much can we really discount what he did this year? We looked awesome. Yeah. He's in a great spot.
Dude, I'm telling you, dude, he's James Robinson 2.0. Yeah. Like we all asked who was going to be the James Robinson again, and we were all wrong.
Yeah. So I like that call. Honestly, I'm probably too low on him. At 18, I'm gonna stick with the running backs here. And this is a guy, I don't know, maybe I have him ahead of Mitchell by 3 or 4 spots, actually. I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson. I like him. I don't love him. I think that he does really good things. I think it's also just hilarious that the whole thing, the narrative on him was this a wide receiver, like they converted to running back, but then we haven't really seen him used in the passing game. Like you would expect that kind of guy to use, but a lot of question marks, obviously. You don't even know what the QB is going to be there next year. The regime is intact, but I still think that he's just a guy that can be a solid low end RB1, high end RB2 over the course of his career. A little bit limited upside compared to a couple of these guys. I like their upside more, but I just think he's a little bit safer. So I guess I'm going to take the solid, gap double and take Antonio Gibson. Some people might think that's a homer because they love him, but I think he's just solid running back. So I'm gonna go with him at 18.
Yeah. For me, I have one guy above Gibson. Gibson was the one guy not in this tier, and this was the injury tier that I was referring to. So I have J.K. Dobbins ranked higher than him, just because the ceiling that we've seen in games from J.K. Dobbins has been higher than what we've seen from Gibson. Gibson has only had basically one game where I've been like, oh, wow, that's pretty wild, when he did get used in the passing game and the running game, looked like a true track star out there. And got those touchdowns. What hasn't been there has been the touchdowns in quite a few games and the pass game work. So I'm concerned that you're looking at a situation like Alfred Morris, good old Fred Morris with the Washington Redskins before the name change. So I'm a little bit concerned about Gibson. Plus, I've never been wowed by him thus far in the last 2 years. So it's just kind of underwhelming. I like Dobbins. The reason he's not at the top of the tier, even though I like his game tape quite a bit more than the guys who are ranked above him, and Akers and Mitchell, is we have no idea what's going on with that knee right now. There's a lot of talk about it being quite a bit of serious damage, which is very sad for a guy who was extremely, extremely explosive. Hopefully it turns out all right, but until I see him on the field, I can't have him ranked any higher. I do, just based off of pure talent and what I understand and the guys that are below him, but he's basically the last running back that I have before I'm making the position switch back to a couple other guys that catch the ball. Yeah,
I had Dobbins pretty close to where I had overall. I like I like the kid a lot. Like you said, the unknown of the injury really just stinks because he's in a really good situation as far as paired with Lamar Jackson. I mean, this kid has a ton of upside. So I hope he's back to 100% and we can see it. What we saw those flashes of in that second half of 2020 when they finally handed him the reins. So I like the Dobbins call there, though, despite the question marks. I'm actually going to go at 20. So we're halfway home. We're running a little long, so we might speed this up, but that's all right. Yeah. I'm going with another running back here that we have injury question marks and how we've never even seen him play. I'm going to go with Travis Etienne. I think that the James Robinson injury probably opens the door for a little bit more work for him next year. Honestly, I was on the James Robinson train where only because Jerry was, I guess. Honestly, I look, I'm like, as soon as they drafted Etienne, I'm like, damn it. And then Etienne got hurt. I'm like, okay, I survived. And then he's been awesome. And hell yeah. And then he gets hurt at the end of the season. I'm like, all right, well, we might just be back to where we thought we started here at the beginning of the year. But honestly, I love the fact that Etienne can be involved in every facet of the game. He's a great pass catcher, obviously. And he's going to get forgotten because we've never even seen him touch the field yet. But I think, I'm be real interested to see where he kind of lines up when we even add this incoming rookie class as well. But I know for me, he was the running back 2 behind Najee, and to get him at a pretty steep discount, I'm willing to take the shot, just see how the upside pans out, despite the fact that he's still on Jacksonville. So real quick, because I know we got to speed up. I'm going to ask you anyway.
You're good.
What's your
thoughts?
I'll
be less long-winded going forward.
What's your thoughts on Etienne?
I like Etienne a lot. And then he was actually 21. My next guy. So everyone that we've ranked right now has been in line by the time we get to the end of the round. So we've gotten through my top 20 guys. I like Etienne a lot. I actually acquired him for the 108 prior to the end of the season. It was actually right before the James Robinson injury is when I acquired him for the 108. I'm ecstatic about it because at the 108 and a 1 QB, I don't think you're getting a running back even close to what the potential is of Etienne. We haven't seen him. If you once again want to check out an episode where I talk deeply about Etienne, check out the last rookie rundown because I dive deep into my analysis on him. And that's all I'm going to say.
I love it. All right. We're in the second half here. We got 21. We'll go a little bit more rapid fire back and forth.
Yeah.
So who you got?
It is going to be the guy that is basically, I have a 3 block of wide receivers, including CeeDee Lamb based off of what I've seen. And I'm going with Devonta Smith. Hurts has basically been lauded and accepted as the quarterback of the future, at least for next year, by all of the management, the GM, the head coach there in Philly. Even though they lost, he did what he needed to basically this year to secure the job. You're going to get the continued rapport between 2 guys that played with each other already. They showed a pretty good chemistry. The thing that was concerning was specifically the deep ball. For some reason, Devonta Smith just could not get to a lot of the deep balls, even though Hurts is a very accurate deep ball thrower. So I'm hoping that increases. You see a better percentage of catches when targeted. He was at 62% this year, which is terrible for a wide receiver. So I'm looking for increased production on a guy who still is open every play. If you just go back, I know a lot of us don't have access to the all 22 tape, but I've seen a couple from Matt Waldman where I'm just like, he's so open. He's still so open. It's a clone basically of a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who we'll talk about, I'm assuming here in a little bit, where they're just so open. They just need to be hit by their quarterback more often. But I'm going Devonta Smith next.
All right, we'll go back-to-back Eagles here. I'm going Jalen Hurts. I'm popping the QB bottle again. He moved up a couple spots actually this morning when the Eagles kind of came out and pretty much said that he's a starter next year.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's 1 year of Jalen Hurts? Maybe, but he's a top 12 quarterback, and hell, that could be more usable years than any of the other, heading into their second year guys that we just took 10 picks ago. So, yes, obviously I like Hurts far less overall from a dynasty perspective, but when you're looking at Hurts, he is going to be a QB1 in 2022. And I feel pretty good about that. If you get anything else in future years with him, I think that's just gravy, and I'm okay with that because I know I'm getting a solid quarterback for at least 1 year. And not like a Daniel Jones situation. So I'll go with Hurts at 22 and then kick it back to you.
I'm following suit actually with the quarterback position here and going with Tua Tagovailoa. And it is not because of an obscene talent. amount that he showed us. He's been a very middle of the road quarterback, which is pretty much all you really need for a quarterback too. That's why I do enjoy him. But why I'm doubling down on him in most leagues that I own him, and the ones that I don't, I'm going to try to acquire, is the fact that they fired Brian Flores over the fact that he didn't want to use him, which tells me there's absolutely no way that the new head coach is going to get any leeway with another quarterback being brought in or being drafted. They're sticking with Tua. You have the wide receiver in Waddle. You have hopefully Gesicki, who they bring back, who's a monster when he's healthy. And you would expect one of these top tier running backs to land there. I don't know how they can keep going with the running back roulette that they've been playing. So I'm going with Tua. After this point, everyone's just kind of a crapshoot at the quarterback for me. So even in Superflex, I'm not really eyeing anyone else, but Tua is the last guy where I'm like, all right, yeah, I like you.
I gotcha. I'm gonna go running back. To me, there's really, I think I only had 2 more on I got 3 more on my list total. And
you better be saying my guy right now.
I'm going with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know where you're headed. I think that, like, and again, this is another, like, this is more like you hit it, you thought was to the gap, but then the outfield just fell down and you still got a double out of it. This is like Antonio Gibson, like less, like light, whatever. I think that we've seen enough situations where I'm totally out on CEH as an RB1, like a top 12 guy. Like he's been outplayed by lesser guys, and in as far as what we thought were lesser guys. Maybe CEH is just lesser, right? He's definitely shown some flashes. He's also been banged up 2 straight years. Now all it takes is like 1 solid playoff game and people will be all the way back in him, and then I will be all the way out on him. But for where he's at right now, as far as his value kind of falling down, I'm okay with him here. This is 24 overall out of these last 2 classes. So, yeah, I got just a couple of running backs left, but I'm going to lean CEH and then kick it back to you for 25.
Yeah. I mean, I'm offended, but it's fine. I'm going to go with my guy, Michael Carter.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, the last game of the season when he was healthy, he was on pace for like 600 yards before he pulled his hammy. So, the dude's very good. He showed everything he needed to. He won the running back position by the end of the year before he got hurt. The 2 games to end out the season when he was hurt and was being replaced by the other guys showed absolutely nothing. He was pretty much the lone bright spot outside of another rookie who I'm positive we'll be talking about in the next couple picks from the Jets. He's the last running back of the last 2 classes where there's pretty much any upside of like a featured role happening on the team. So I just went ahead and swooped him up before we hit a bevy of pass catchers over the next couple picks. So
yeah, and I'm sticking with you. I'm in New York, and I'm going with a Jet, Elijah Moore. He's the last like guy that I feel like could be a true difference maker that's left out of these 2 draft classes. There's guys I like, don't get me wrong. And in fact, I think Moore has more upside than even CEH. I took a couple of picks ago. Mm-hmm. I think he has the talent to be a freaking stud. I had him right there with Waddle heading into the year. And I don't know that he really showed me anything that to say that was wrong. Yeah. He was really good when he was on the field. I forget the exact numbers. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. But like for that stretch of games, he was like a top 5 wide receiver. It just is like, and some of it was a little fluky, but like still, like you saw that this kid's really talented, especially in an offense that was struggling to get the ball to anyone. So I like Moore a ton. And again, if this is a guy that you can take advantage of him not being on the field late in the season, because people are going to forget about that middle of the year, I'd do it, because I think this kid's absolutely is solid. If you can get him for a fraction of what you have to pay up to get Waddle, I'm doing that. Give me that for sure. So on a value wise, I love it. Elijah Moore at 26. Back to you for 27.
Yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to set the world ablaze with homerism over my next 2 picks, but I'm going wide receiver, and I'm going with a guy I actually had ranked higher than Elijah Moore, and that's Darnell Mooney. Anyone who has not been paying attention to Darnell Mooney needs to. That's just what I'll tell you guys. He went over 1,000 yards this season, over 100 targets this season. The touchdown totals weren't super high because the touchdowns for the team in general weren't very high. but he proved he can be a wide receiver 1 on this team. And when he's not asked to be a wide receiver 1 next year, I think it's going to look even better. He's shown more in his last 2 years than pretty much any of the other remaining wide receivers from the 2020 class. I've seen more that I like. I like the situation with the quarterback more than what I currently see happening on the other teams. And so I'm going Darnell Mooney. I had him above Elijah Moore just based off of the quarterback situation in general, because I told you before the season I hated Zach Wilson, and I still hate Zach Wilson. So I'm going Darnell Mooney. Call me a homer. I don't really care. The dude flies. He makes contested catches that he shouldn't, and he's just got a cool last name. So that's it.
There you go. Yeah, I thought that was the one players I'm going through this. Like, I was like, where's Dallas going to have this guy?
Number 2.
I was like, man, it was just it was definitely something I was thinking about as I was doing. Like, man, I almost need to put him a little higher just because maybe I have a shot at him. I had 3 more wide receivers, really 2 that I felt good about, but he's definitely in that. He's over some names that I don't think that many people. I think there's some names I had him over that I don't think many people would be on.
Yeah.
And obviously you're on that train with on Mooney. So I mentioned it with Elijah Moore. Like, I kind of feel like we're at the break where there's some guys have some nice upside, but I think that, they're kind of just contributors to your team. So when that, I'm going to go to a quarterback. I'm going to go with Mack Jones. He was the best rookie quarterback from this class, but that doesn't mean he's the best fantasy option going forward. So I think what we saw this year was good. If you got him in your draft, wherever you got him, probably even in Superflex, back end of round 1.
Yeah.
I even saw him in, slipping to round 2 a little bit. You're happy because you have a quarterback that you can start for the next 10 years or however long you stay in your league. So I'm good with that. That's valuable. But I don't think he's a QB1 at any point. He just doesn't have the upside. When you don't rush, you better damn have some crazy gaudy passing stats, and he won't have that. So at 28, I'm cool with it. But it's just like, hey, I can add a contributor to what is the most valuable position in my opinion, and Superflex is the quarterback. So I'm gonna add Mack Jones at 28 and kick it back to you for 29.
Yeah. Like the Mack Jones pick, that was the only other one really at the quarterback where you can feel like, oh, he has a job for sure after next year. But yeah, same thing with you. 5-yard passes just aren't going to do it for me. He had one game against your very own Cowboys where he actually let go, and that's just because Trevon Diggs doesn't know how to cover the deep ball, as we had multiple conversations about. But yeah, so I'm going to kick it back to the tight end position. And once again, another homer pick. It's Cole Kmet. He was top 6 in tight end targets this year. He was top 6 in tight end receptions this year. He had 61 receptions, if I'm not mistaken, and he ended the season with 0 touchdowns. In the same vein, like a guy like Mark Andrews' touchdown totals not being sustainable and going back towards the regression, there's no way that Kmet can. I can't understand how you have that many targets and that many receptions and 0 touchdowns, but it's insane to me. He's the favorite target of Justin Fields right now. Him and Mooney are pretty much the only ones that get the heavy bevy of targets. It was consistent all season as well. He didn't have any really high or really low games. He was pretty much at that 5 and 6 target every single game. So when you're looking at the tight end position, I don't really care about the touchdowns. I care more about that target volume and target share. And out of all the remaining tight ends of the last 2 classes, he's the only one with a respectable target share. So I'm going in this tight end premium and the reception premium for the tight ends with a guy like Cole Kmet.
All right. I'm going to go back to wide receiver. This is a guy that moved up my board a bit in comparison to where I had him last year. Just really solid. He was actually better as far as overall points. He's right in points per game. He's skosh behind, but Michael Pittman, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdown, solid wide receiver 2 for your fantasy team. I think that there's some guys that I think have more upside if their situation was better. And Pittman's really is probably going to stay pretty status quo. Even if they moved on from Carson Wentz for whatever reason. It's not like Wentz was a huge, plus for Pittman. He was definitely better than some of the alternatives and what they had. But I think Pittman is just, again, a very solid middle of the road wide receiver 2 and somebody that I'd feel real comfortable with. So despite some of the other situations that might have better upside, if it landed perfect, I think with Pittman, I don't really think I can lose here. So I'm going to go with Pittman at number 30 and then see what you got for 31.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Pittman is the only person I did not have on this list. So I would have had him. I would have had him right there, right before the guy I'm about to take at the wide receiver position. So I approve of the pick.
Okay.
I'm going with the highest upside player, if even a respectable mid to deep range quarterback lands with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is Chase Claypool. He could be a freaking monster, Calvin Johnson-esque, if he just got someone who could put the ball on a dime deep. And I just, he's so good, but he just does not get like respectable targets. There's always like two guys draped on him, and Big Ben's throwing it at the back of the defender's head every time.
Yeah.
And so I'm going with Claypool. He once again showed a bunch of circus catches. He had surprising stats. If you look at his year-end totals, it's just his game-on-game average wasn't that good. Juju, realistically, no way he gets signed back, and the quarterback can't be worse than what they had this year. So give me the Claypool when it goes to the upside of all the guys that are remaining.
Yep. And it was actually Mooney, Claypool, and then the guy that was the top of the list for me, very barely though. I'm going to go with Jerry Jeudy. I think he is just as talented as some of the receivers that went 10 picks ago. But, and actually, if I had to, if gun to my head, I'd probably take Claypool over Jeudy just because I think at least with Claypool, he's only got one very solid weapon around him and a quarterback position that will probably be addressed. When you look at Jeudy, they re-signed Cortland Sutton, which I was hoping he'd kind of make his way out. Tim Patrick got the bag, which good for him. He's a hell of he is a good underrated wide receiver. And then now Judy's still there. I hope they need to just get a damn quarterback. I mean, if you want like a lotto ticket, go get Jerry Jeudy or Chase Claypool. They're very similar to me that as soon as they get any different person standing in the quarterback room, their value goes up from today. So, but the reason I probably would take Claypool over Jeudy is just because there's one less cook in the kitchen there in Pittsburgh versus in Denver. So as much as I love Jerry Jeudy, I own too much Jerry Jeudy. I'm still going to take him at 32, but those are some buy low guys that I think you're especially when you compare him to like Pittman. I think Claypool and Jeudy could see huge boosts if they can upgrade that quarterback position in either Pittsburgh or Denver. So can't believe he's at 32 here, but that's how I'm calling with.
Yeah, it's wild to me. I have them back to back. The only reason I put Claypool was again because of that high ceiling and the cooks in the kitchen aspect. But I mean, as you know, you're in the Aussie league with me. I literally have Claypool and Jeudy. I wish I would have waited one season to purchase these guys because I spent quite a bit more last season than I probably needed to acquire them. But I have the combo of Chase Claypool and Jerry Jeudy in I think 5 out of my 8 dynasty leagues.
Dang. All right.
I'm very heavily invested. I like them both. Like I said, when I was talking about Devonta Smith, Jeudy is always open. He just doesn't have a quarterback that gets in the ball quick enough. Just give me a in rhythm passer, a guy like Jimmy G with Jerry Jeudy, who's constantly open, would be amazing for his value.
Yeah. Let's see it. Let's hope. All right. We're at 33 here. Just a few more left. Who are you going with?
So this one is like a little bit weird for me. I want to go back to the tight end position, but I can't go back to the tight end position right now because it's a guy I'm telling everyone to sell this offseason. So I'm going to go back to the wide receiver position. And for me, this one is still a talent in just sticking to my laurels based off of the very limited work that we saw him in this year. I'm going Rashad Bateman. He didn't have the quarterback for basically, a third/half of the season with Lamar being banged up. The offense was never ticking, plus the fact that he was injured for basically the first half of the season. We only saw him for a couple of games in the actual system. They didn't have a healthy running back all year. They were relying on the corpse of Devonta Freeman basically in the backfield, a bunch of backups, a bunch of COVID-ravaged injuries on the offensive line. Rashad Bateman really didn't get a chance to get in any type of rhythm. When he did catch the ball, he looked electric with it in his hands, which is what we saw when he was back in college. And being my wide receiver 2 from last year's class, not being able to see him fully, it's the same type of situation that I have with a guy like Travis Etienne, where I want to see what he can actually do with a full offseason, where he's not injured, with his quarterback of the future. And hopefully when they move a guy like Marquise Brown back into his limited role as a deep threat, as opposed to trying to funnel him the ball 10 times for 41 yards. So I'm going with the Bateman pick here.
I like that a lot. He's definitely someone that's extremely interesting to me. The Baltimore offense is just one that I know I've already kind of haven't done. I'm sorry, I haven't done in the last 2 weeks, everybody, but That's kind of like when I wrote down, like, I want to do a little bit more of an in-depth, see how this offense looked when Lamar was out there. I know Andrews obviously had a monster season, but how much of that came without him, when you look at these guys and how the splits worked. But I like the Colin Bateman a lot. He was right there in contention for me. I guess the second half of this draft or pick 'em or whatever you want to call it here will just be the Kyle keeps taking crappy quarterbacks and then letting Dallas take real players, because I'll just go with Zach Wilson. It's super flex again. Like I whatever I mentioned about Mack Jones, you can like copy and paste it here, but just like not be as thrilled about it. Like if you get a playable quarterback for the next 3 years, that's good. I think you could take that for Zach Wilson. I know we all had higher hopes than that. I think Mack Jones is pretty locked in because he's safe. I don't think he can hurt himself there. He's obviously in a regime that's not going anywhere unless they want to. Zach Wilson, hell, I mean, everyone could be fired tomorrow and no one would probably be surprised. But I think Wilson's at least locked and loaded for this year. Hopefully he can take that step and be a startable QB2. But 34 overall, I guess I'll just go ahead and bite the bullet and take Zach Wilson and kick it back to you.
Yeah. So I hate that. I hate everything about that. But I'm going to go ahead and transition back to the wide receiver position. And this is a block of guys. I have 3 guys here where they could go pretty much anywhere in this little order, but I'm going to go with a guy that I didn't like before the season. And I will own up to say that I think I was wrong. Even though we didn't see it long-term, we didn't see it in a lot of games due to injuries. Kadarius Toney looked very, very, very good in the action that he saw where he was the main target. And Kenny Gallaudet is dead as a prospect. I mean, there's a lot of contracts that are going to be up in New York. There's a complete offensive upheaval that's going to happen. If they stick with Daniel Jones when a new offense comes in with a new head coach, everyone deserves to be stuck in purgatory forever. And I tweeted that out a couple weeks ago when they were talking about, Daniel Jones is still our guy next year. I'm like, you're an idiot. He looked so explosive. He's doing things on the field when he's healthy that pretty much only Tyreek Hill does when he has the ball in his hand. Maybe Deebo Samuel. So if you get him healthy with a high target volume like he was getting in a lot of those games, I like his upside more than quite a few guys on this list that I would have had ranked higher. There's a couple that I feel very sketchy about how high I'd had them ranked last year based off of what they didn't do in their first year. So give me Toney and his upside as opposed to a target hog who I think you probably have quite a few spots ranked higher than a guy like Toney.
To be honest, I didn't forget about him. He's on my pool, but in my ranks, I didn't even put him in here. That was a mistake. And not that I would have had him ranked too much higher, but this is the right spot for him. I was definitely a guy. I'm like, okay, no, thank you. What a dumb pick. And all the whole narrative too is he had a great last year in Florida with Kyle Pitts, taking all the attention. I don't need that guy. I've seen that show. Give me that. I don't want the little, the guy that's just speed, which really Toney did much more than that. He was somebody that really broke out in the middle of that season, just dealt with the injuries. And honestly, people are going to forget about him even more than they did with Elijah Moore, right? Because Toney's on the damn Giants. Nobody wants a Giant on their team. I like that call a lot. I like him better than this pick that I'm going to make now. And I had this guy ranked at number 33 on my list. I'm going to go with Brandon Ayuk. I think he can be really good. I'm just concerned of the quarterback situation. This offense won't sustain his type of play. So that's really it. I'm more just taking him over some of these other guys because I just think he's a little bit more talented. And then we'll just see if we're not good at predicting the future, and maybe something will change as far as how this offense goes. But with Trey Lance long term, I'm just a little bit concerned that Ayuk will never really hit that ceiling that we thought he might have had after that huge end to his rookie season. So at 36, though, I'm going to go with Ayuk. Yeah,
I agree with that one. He's a guy also that I was dabbling with, but I'm the same way with the way that George Kittle erupted at the back half of the season, the way that Deebo has basically just owned that offense right now, even with a quarterback like Trey Lance coming in, the outside wide receiver doesn't seem very appealing to me. He's the type of guy where just some team trade the 49ers at first and just take them off their hands. They can deal with Jawan Jennings as their wide receiver too, because they're going to run the ball 35 times anyway, so it doesn't even matter. And just get this guy in an offense where it puts him on the outside. It'd be so appealing. For me, you're really trying to make me do this, dude. I don't want to do it. I'm going to stick at the wide receiver position for one more guy.
Okay.
And it's a guy that I don't feel great about it. But I don't think his overall target share could be any worse than what it was this year. And it's Rondale Moore. His usage was just weird. They went all offseason, all preseason looking like they were going to make him a feature. And then when he actually could step into the wide receiver one role, when DeAndre Hopkins was down for an extended period of time, they continued to not use him at all. And so I don't really know what's going on there. He was showing that he could get open. He was showing that he would be electric. But he had that 171-yard touchdown this season. And other than that, he just didn't get targeted. That was pretty much the only game where he was relevant. And it's something that's concerning to me. I think a lot of people are a little bit sketched out after what we saw on Monday night with this Cardinals offense in general. So I think there will be a little bit of a shakeup with the way that they're deciding to run it. Hopefully an AJ Green retirement coming soon may elevate his stock a little bit up. But I'm going just pure upside, pure athleticism in a pool of guys that I'm not super high on, but do have upside.
Yep. I had Rondale Moore in a couple spots, and I don't know what the hell is going on there.
Yep.
And not that this is the same, because I think Moore already showed more in his limited attempts, but in the back of my mind, I'm still living this Andy Isabella just nightmare, I'm like, could this be another second round pick they literally just set on fire for no reason? What the hell? The fact that he's this far down is definitely a guy that I wouldn't have predicted this. I would have expected him to be higher based off of where I projected him to be at the beginning of the season. But at 38, I'm going to go with Pat Friarmuth. At the tight end position, I'm just not very thrilled, I know, with what this position looks like. Maybe it's because of Hawkinson not taking that step. Maybe it's because Noah Fant's getting outplayed by a dude on his team with a much longer name. Gesicki, little question mark on where he's going to be at. I like him, though, if he lands in a good spot. I think Friarmuth is just a guy that, similar to if you take Mack Jones or Zach Wilson, I think you have a solid enough tight end. I just don't think he'll be that. He won't turn into Mark Andrews or George Kittle or whatever. He's just not that kind of guy. Nope. But I think he can be a very solid tight end for you. In tight end premium, I'm kind of at the end of the line where I think the most of these guys, while I like them, I think Friarmuth is somebody that I wouldn't have to worry about just turning into a pumpkin on me. So I'll go with him and bite the bullet for you.
Yeah. I didn't want to. I was forcing myself not to. He is my number one sell of the offseason, regardless of position, regardless of anything. And I go into a deep dive as to why on the rookie rundown from last week. So listen to it. Number 39 is what we're rocking.
39. Right, so this is your last pick. One. Yep.
I'm going to go back to the running back position, and it's a guy who continues to get work that will get a lead role at some point, whether or not it is next year, potentially with a cut of the guy that's in front of him after this season, or if it's on another team. But it's AJ Dillon. Dude looks good whenever he gets work. He looks really, really good. Similar vein to one other running back that may be your next pick. I don't know. But when it comes to AJ Dillon, he's a tank. He's shown elusiveness that he didn't really show in college, and he's shown that he can catch the screen and bury those cornerbacks into the ground. So I'm going AJ Dillon. I understand that Aaron Jones is still there, but I really do think that there's going to be a shakeup in the Packers offense, specifically if they do not win the Super Bowl. If they win it again, they may run it back just because Aaron's appeased, Devontae's appeased, and you may just see that same tandem of Jones, Rodgers, and Adams. But if not, I think you should see probably a huge shakeup, maybe a higher reliance on the running game, and quite a bit more of A.J. Dillon sprinkled in if there is a Jordan Love appearance coming, which God help us that there is not.
Yeah, I had 2 shares of AJ Dillon. I sold one of them mid-season when he was the starter for that one game or whatever, because I was like, Aaron Jones is going to be here for this year and next. and at least, and then in the second half, it got not so great for that take. I was like, oh man, this kid actually looks pretty good. So I sold AJ Dillon straight up for Chase Claypool, and I felt like I just stole him. Like, hell yeah. And now I'm like, I still like it, but I don't love it. Like before, I was probably like, I was putting a poster of that trade up on my wall. Like I dominated that moment. And now I'm like, I don't know that I love it as much, but I do think he's definitely worth being drafted here. I think he's got a ton of upside. If they made him the feature and put Jones in that, it's somewhere in that like 8 to 10 touch role, I think Dillon could be really damn good for fantasy, because then I think Dillon's going to get the goal line work in Green Bay if they flip that switch. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Pick 40. This guy probably would have been higher up the board for a lot of people. I am still not sure that I believe, but I don't know that I can just completely disregard, I guess, the way that our boy Amon-Ra St. Brown finished the season. Is he ever going to do that again, ever in his career? No, but I think if he can be a usable like Michael Pittman light, then I'm good with that. There's a couple other guys that I really like, but they just have some hurdles in their way at the position. I think if those hurdles were removed, then I think they would jump Amon-Ra. But for now, is the last pick here, Mr. Irrelevant-ish. I'll go with Amon-Ra St. Brown at number 40. As we put a bow on this thing, you want to rattle off any quick honorable mentions you're disappointed you didn't get to?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one guy. There's only one guy that I had ranked higher, and that's Nico Collins. I've been touting him since about mid-season. The Dynasty trade calculator agrees his value's tripled since mid-season. Basically, you saw him really start to click with Davis Mills down the road, and he's still pretty much the only receiving option on the team outside of Brandon Cooks, who realistically could get traded once again for, I mean, I wouldn't even be shocked if it was another late first based off of what he was doing with just abysmal quarterback work this season. But Nico is a big guy. He's fast. He was hurt for over half the season. When he did get his actual target opportunity, he produced with it. Same thing with Brevin Jordan. And honestly, Davis Mills didn't look very bad. So I'm surprisingly a little bit higher on this entire Houston Texans offense than I thought I was going to be at this point at the beginning of the season, really, when they got the crap kicked out of them. But yeah, I'm pretty high on the Houston Texans. Other than that, pretty much everyone's forgettable. There's some guys with some upside. A lot of people like Josh Palmer. I don't know why, but that's about all I have to say.
My honorable mention was Josh Palmer. To be honest, like just because I think there's two avenues where he could get some work, but I don't think he has like a ton of upside. I wasn't super excited about putting him on here. Van Jefferson is a guy that I actually like Van Jefferson, but more than Josh Palmer. But I think, again, there's some hurdles there. For him to work his way in. Don't even. And then on just to keep the classic crappy QBs going, the only two guys I didn't draft that were outside my top 4 technically were Davis Mills and Jordan Love, in that order. So I think that's it. That's all I got, man. This was a fun exercise. I like doing this every year, and I knew it'd be perfect to have you on here. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, anytime. Also, I did actually forget, if you can acquire Hunter Long for like a 4th round pick, definitely go out and do it, because there is a pretty strong chance that Gesicki is not re-signed in Miami. Yep. And then he becomes tight end 1 in Miami with Tua, who likes the tight end. That's the last thing I have to say.
I like that. I don't know. Every year, usually I'll go through and kind of see like how many shares of a player I own. I didn't do that this year. I was kind of disappointed I didn't at the beginning of the year. But I bet you that Hunter Long is probably somewhere in that top 10 of play. Who knows? Maybe it'll pay off, but we will see. I know you kind of noted some things from previous rookie rundown shows. Not to put you on the spot, but you got anything for us as far as going forward? What's on the docket here for you?
My next 2 weeks. So I'm going into my first official top 10 at each position on my next podcast. And then the one to follow will be basically Senior Bowl. It'll be 2 weeks of Senior Bowl coverage for me, going off of the true senior prospects, what to expect for the game, etc. And then following that, my reaction. Any guys that actually showcased anything. Looking at you, Sam Howell. If you look like crap during the game, I'm done with you. But that's pretty much it I've got rolling on. It'll be a fun couple of weeks here as we actually start preparing for the draft, which is a little bit closer than people realize.
Yes, exactly. And as someone that does not pay too much attention to rookies until about this time of year, I am extremely excited to consume this content. So I'll be looking forward to checking that out. right here on the DWZ Network. Next week here on the Smackdown, I'll be doing a riser and fallers, just comparing my initial 2022 redraft rankings compared to how my rankings ended in draft season for 2021. So a lot of names that will not exist on those rankings compared to last year, as they are now redraft. But with that, again, be sure to stay subscribed to the Warzone Network. 5 stars wherever you're listening to this. Stay tuned in, catch the rookie rundown, and the fantasy football Smackdown here in the coming weeks. We'll catch you guys later. See ya.